The shadow of honor, the galaxy that forgot. In the vast expanse of space, where countless civilizations had risen and fallen like waves against cosmic shores, the word night had become nothing more than an ancient whisper. The Galactic Coalition, a loose alliance of 12 major species, governed through cold logic and brutal efficiency. Honor was a liability, mercy was weakness, and chivalry was a concept so foreign that most translation matrices couldn't even process it properly. The Krex Empire dominated this reality with iron claws. Their warships, massive and angular like flying fortresses, patrolled trade routes and enforced their will through fear. Admiral X9, commander of the 3rd Krex Fleet, often boasted that his people had evolved beyond such primitive emotions as compassion. Survival of the strongest, he would declare from his command throne. This is the only law that matters in the void. On the outer rim worlds, mining colonies and research stations operated under constant threat. Protection came at a price, and that price was absolute submission. The galaxy had accepted this reality long ago. Hope was a luxury few could afford. But in a small sector of space, aboard a modest exploration vessel called the Wanderer, Captain Marcus Reed carried something the galaxy had forgotten. The Scholar Warrior. Marcus had once been Professor Marcus Reed, teaching medieval history at Earth's Colonial University. His lectures on the Code of Chivalry had filled auditoriums with students fascinated by humanity's ancient ideals of honor, courage, and service to others. When Earth finally achieved faster-than-light travel and joined the galactic community, Marcus volunteered for the exploration program, believing that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their technology, but in their values. The galaxy quickly taught him otherwise. During his first diplomatic mission, Marcus watched in horror as Krex enforcers executed prisoners without trial. When he protested, citing galactic law and basic rights, the Krex captain had laughed. Rights, laws, these are luxuries for the strong human. The weak deserve only what we choose to give them. Most humans learn to adapt, to look the other way, to survive by accepting the galaxy's harsh realities. But Marcus carried something deeper within him, something that refused to bend. The distress call. The emergency beacon reached the Wanderer during a routine survey mission near the Epsilon system. The signal was weak, almost lost in cosmic background radiation, but the message was clear. This is mining colony Epsilon 7. We are under occupation by Krex forces, requesting immediate assistance. Our people are dying. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, Marcus's second-in-command, studied the tactical display with growing concern. Captain, long-range sensors show at least 6 Krex warships in that system. Heavy cruisers, by the look of them. Even if we called for coalition backup, it would take weeks to assemble a response force. Marcus stood at the bridge viewport, watching distant stars wheel slowly past. The smart move would be to report the incident to Coalition Command and continue their survey mission. The safe move would be to avoid Krex space entirely. The logical move would be to acknowledge that one small ship couldn't possibly make a difference against such overwhelming odds. But Marcus wasn't thinking like a modern galactic citizen. He was thinking like a knight. "Plot a course for Epsilon 7, he ordered quietly. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Chief Engineer Tobin, a gruff veteran of the colony wars, stepped forward. "Captain, with respect, that's suicide. We're a science vessel, not a warship. Those Krex cruisers will tear us apart before we get within a light minute of that colony." Marcus turned from the viewport, and something in his eyes made the crew fall silent. It wasn't anger or desperation they saw there, but a calm certainty that seemed to come from another age entirely. "Chief Tobin," Marcus said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of absolute conviction. "How many people are in that colony?" "Approximately 12,000, sir, mostly miners and their families. 12,000 souls crying out for help in the darkness. Tell me, Chief, if that were your family down there, would you want someone to answer that call?" Tobin's weathered face softened slightly. Of course, sir, but wanting and doing are two different things. We're not equipped for this kind of mission. Marcus nodded slowly. You're right. We're not equipped for conquest or destruction. But perhaps we're equipped for something the galaxy has forgotten how to do. First contact with cynicism. The Wanderer's arrival in the Epsilon system triggered immediate response from the Krex blockade. Admiral X9 himself appeared on the communication screen, his reptilian features twisted into what might have been amusement. Multiple rows of sharp teeth gleamed as he spoke. Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted Krex space. State your business or be destroyed. Marcus faced the screen calmly, his uniform crisp and bearing formal. Behind him, his crew stood at attention, their faces reflecting a mixture of fear and determination. Admiral X9, I presume. I am Captain Marcus Reed of the Earth vessel Wanderer. I'm here to discuss the situation on Epsilon 7. The Krex Admiral's laugh was like breaking glass. Discuss? There is nothing to discuss, human. This colony now belongs to the Krex Empire. The inhabitants work for us now, mining precious minerals for our war effort. This is their purpose. Their purpose, Marcus repeated carefully, is to live free lives, to raise their children, to pursue happiness and fulfillment. They are not property to be claimed. X9's expression shifted from amusement to puzzlement, then to something approaching disgust. You speak of concepts that have no meaning. Freedom, happiness, these are weaknesses that lead to destruction. The strong rule, the weak serve. This is the natural order. I believe in another order, Admiral, one where the strong protect the weak, where power serves justice, and where mercy is a strength, not a weakness. The alien commander's silence stretched for several heartbeats. When he spoke again, his voice carried a mixture of curiosity and contempt. You use words that our translators struggle with, human. What is this mercy you speak of? What is justice? These concepts do not exist in any galactic language. Marcus felt a deep sadness settle over him. The galaxy had indeed forgotten. Then perhaps it's time they were remembered. The code awakens. That night, as the Wanderer held position at the edge of the system, Marcus stood alone in his quarters, looking at an ancient sword mounted on his wall. It was a replica of a medieval knight's blade, crafted by his grandfather, who had shared the old stories of honor and duty. The inscription on the blade read, courage, honor, justice, mercy, honesty, hope. Lieutenant Chen entered after a soft knock. Captain, the crew is asking what our plan is. The Krex have us outnumbered and outgunned by ridiculous margins. Marcus touched the sword's hilt gently. Sarah, do you know what a knight was? Ancient Earth warrior class, right? Feudal system, horses, armor, that sort of thing. More than that, a knight was someone who took an oath to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them, regardless of the cost, to embody ideals that were bigger than any one person. Chen frowned. That sounds noble, Captain, but this isn't medieval Earth. This is the reality of galactic politics. Ideals don't stop plasma cannons. Marcus smiled sadly. Maybe not, but perhaps they can do something more important. Perhaps they can remind the galaxy what it means to be truly civilized. He turned to face his second-in-command. Signal the crew. I want volunteers only for what comes next. Anyone who wants to transfer to the escape pods and wait for coalition pickup has my blessing. No one will think less of them. And what exactly comes next, sir? Marcus looked out at the stars, toward the distant colony where 12,000 people waited for salvation that would never come through conventional means. We're going to show the galaxy what a knight looks like when he stands against the darkness. The ancient oath. In the ship's common area, Marcus addressed his crew. They were a mixed group, representatives of 4 different species, all united by their dedication to exploration and discovery. As he spoke, he could see doubt and fear in their eyes, but also something else. something that had been sleeping in the hearts of civilized beings for far too long. Friends, we face a choice tonight. We can follow the smart path, the safe path, the logical path. We can report this incident and continue our mission, knowing that we did everything reasonable people could expect of us. He paused, letting his words sink in. Or we can choose another path. We can choose to stand for something that this galaxy has forgotten. We can choose to be the light in someone else's darkness, even if it costs us everything. Chief Engineer Tobin was the first to speak. Captain, assuming we go down this path you're talking about, what exactly are you proposing? We can't fight 6 Krex cruisers and win. You're absolutely right, Chief. We can't fight them and win. But we might be able to do something they won't expect. Something that has never been tried in this galaxy, because the concept doesn't exist here anymore. We might be able to show them what honor looks like. Dr. Ylara, the ship's Centaurian science officer, stepped forward. Her species was known for their logical approach to problems, but something in Marcus's words had awakened an old resonance in her mind. Captain Reed, my people have legends, ancient stories of beings who stood against impossible odds not for victory, but for the sake of those who could not stand for themselves. These stories were dismissed as primitive mythology, but perhaps there was truth in them. Marcus nodded gratefully. Every civilization has those stories, Dr. Illara. The galaxy has spent so long forgetting them that it's lost something essential, something that makes the difference between existing and truly living. One by one, each crew member stepped forward to volunteer, not because they believed they could win, but because they believed in something larger than victory or defeat. As Marcus looked at their faces, he saw reflected there the same light that had driven knights across ancient battlefields, the same spirit that had built cathedrals and defended the innocent. The galaxy was about to remember what it had forgotten. And for 12,000 souls on a distant mining colony, that memory would mean the difference between slavery and freedom. When legends walk among stars, the night's gambit, at dawn in the Epsilon system, where distant suns painted the void in shades of gold and crimson, Captain Marcus Reed made his final preparations. The Wanderer hung in space like a tiny prayer against the infinite dark, while 6 massive Krex warships formed a deadly constellation around the occupied colony below. Marcus had spent the night studying every detail of Epsilon 7's layout, memorizing evacuation routes and identifying key infrastructure. But more importantly, he had meditated on the code that had guided humanity's greatest heroes through their darkest hours, the principles that had once transformed ordinary people into legends. Lieutenant Chen approached with the final status report. Captain, all systems are ready. The crew has volunteered to maintain position and provide support from here. The shuttle is prepped for your insertion. Marcus nodded, adjusting the simple armor he wore over his uniform. It wasn't military grade, just a protective vest and helmet, but he had painted the ancient symbol of the Knight's Cross on the chest plate. Sarah, I want you to understand something. What happens next might not make sense from a tactical standpoint, but I need you to trust me. Sir, respectfully, what you're planning is insane. One person infiltrating a heavily defended colony occupied by an entire Krex garrison. Even if you somehow get inside, what can you possibly accomplish? Marcus checked his equipment one final time. A simple energy weapon, basic survival gear, and a small recording device. I'm going to show them what a knight looks like, Sarah. Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. The descent. The shuttle dropped toward Epsilon 7 under cover of an asteroid field, its stealth systems stringing to hide it from Krex sensors. Marcus piloted the craft with steady hands, his mind focused not on the danger ahead, but on the 12,000 souls waiting below. Each life precious, each person worthy of protection. The colony was a sprawling complex of mining facilities and residential domes, connected by transparent tunnels that offered protection from the harsh environment. Krex occupation forces had established checkpoints at every major intersection, their harsh alien architecture clashing with the gentle curves of human design. Marcus landed the shuttle in a maintenance bay and activated its stealth mode. From this point forward, he was on his own. The code in action. The first Krex patrol Marcus encountered was interrogating a group of human miners near the Eastern Processing Facility. The alien soldiers, each nearly 8 feet tall with natural armor plating, were demanding increased quotas through threats and intimidation. An elderly miner had collapsed from exhaustion, and a Krex sergeant was preparing to execute him as an example to the others. Marcus stepped out of the shadows. "Stop," he said quietly, his voice carrying across the plaza with absolute authority. The Krex turned in surprise, weapons immediately trained on this unexpected intruder. The sergeant hissed in the alien tongue, then switched to Galactic Standard. "Human, you are in restricted area. Surrender or die." Marcus walked forward slowly, his hands visible but unafraid. "I am Captain Marcus Reed of Earth. I invoke the right of single combat for the protection of these people." The concept was so foreign to the Krex that their translation software struggled for several seconds. When understanding finally dawned, the sergeant's laugh was harsh and mocking. "Single combat? What primitive nonsense is this? We are not barbarians from your backward world." "Then you have nothing to fear from accepting," Marcus replied calmly, "one of your warriors against me. If I win, these people go free. If I lose, you have proven your superiority." What followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries, not because of the combat itself, though Marcus fought with skill and determination that surprised his reptilian opponent. What shocked the gathering crowd of miners, Krex soldiers, and monitoring coalition observers was what happened after. Marcus won the combat, but instead of executing his defeated opponent as Krex custom demanded, he helped the injured soldier to his feet and called for medical assistance. The aliens' confusion was profound. In their culture, defeat meant death. Mercy was not just unknown, it was incomprehensible. "Why?" the wounded Krex sergeant gasped. "I would have killed you. Why do you help me?" Marcus knelt beside his former opponent, applying pressure to a bleeding wound. "Because mercy is what separates us from animals. Because every life has value. Because this is what knights do." The ripple effect. Word of the strange human's actions spread through the colony like wildfire, not just among the human captives, but among the Krex garrison as well. Soldiers whispered about concepts they had no words for. Commanders struggled to understand tactics that made no logical sense. Admiral X9 monitored the situation from his flagship, growing increasingly agitated as reports filtered in. This human was not behaving according to any known patterns of warfare or resistance. His actions were unpredictable because they were based on principles that had been extinct in the galaxy for millennia. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human has liberated 3 more sections of the colony. But he's not using standard guerrilla tactics. He talks to our soldiers. Some of them are refusing to fight him." X9's claws scraped against his command chair. "What do you mean, refusing to fight?" "They say he shows them respect, even when defeating them. He tends to their wounds, spares their lives, treats them as worthy opponents rather than enemies to be destroyed. It's causing confusion in the ranks." The Admiral's eyes narrowed dangerously. Confusion, or contamination. This human carries a disease of the mind, spreading weakness through our forces. I will deal with him personally. The Knight's challenge. As news of Marcus's actions spread beyond the colony, something remarkable began to happen across the galaxy. Species that had forgotten the meaning of honor started to remember ancient stories. The Centaurians spoke of the Bright Defenders, mythical heroes who fought for justice. The Vegan Confederacy recalled legends of the Star Guardians, protectors of the innocent. Even the militant Thracians had tales of the honor-bound warriors who valued righteousness above victory. On Epsilon 7, Marcus found himself face to face with Admiral X9 in the colony's central plaza. The Krex commander had come personally, bringing with him an escort of the Empire's most elite soldiers. "Human," the Admiral hissed, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. You have spread disorder among my forces with your strange behavior. This ends now." Marcus stood alone, unarmed as per the terms of single combat he had requested. Around the plaza, thousands of colonists watched in silence, while Krek's soldiers maintained a perimeter that felt more like a protective circle than a containment zone. "Admiral Zex-9," Marcus replied, his voice calm and respectful, "I offer you one final chance to withdraw your forces peacefully. These people have done nothing to deserve enslavement. They seek only to live their lives and raise their children in peace." The alien commander's laugh was like breaking stone. "Peace? Children, you speak of things that make species weak. The Krek's empire grew strong by abandoning such foolishness. And what has that strength brought you?" Marcus asked. "Fear, hatred, subjects who obey only because they must. Is that truly strength, or is it just the shadow of something greater?" For the first time in centuries, a Krek's admiral found himself without words. The human's questions touched something deep within his warrior's heart, something his people had buried beneath layers of conquest and domination. The legend reborn. The duel between Marcus and Zex-9 became the stuff of legend, not because of its violence, but because of its restraint. The human knight, fighting with ancient principles against overwhelming odds, demonstrated something the galaxy had forgotten. Honor could be its own strength. Mercy could be its own victory. When Marcus finally stood over the defeated admiral, the entire plaza held its breath. By Krek's law, by galactic custom, by every precedent known to civilized species, the victor would now claim his prize through execution of the vanquished. Instead, Marcus extended his hand to help Zex-9 rise. "I offer you a choice, Admiral," he said quietly, his words carrying across the silent gathering. "You can continue as you have, ruling through fear and taking what you want by force, or you can try something your people have never attempted. You can rule through respect, lead through example, and discover what true strength looks like." The Krek's admiral stared at the offered hand for long moments, his reptilian features cycling through emotions his species had no names for. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and accepted the help. When he stood upright, supported by his former enemy, Admiral Zex-9 spoke words that would echo across the galaxy. "Human knight, you have shown me concepts that exist in no language I know. I would learn more of these things you call honor and mercy." The galaxy remembers. The liberation of Epsilon 7 marked the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history. Not the rise of another military power, but the resurrection of forgotten ideals. Species across the cosmos began to remember their ancient stories of heroes and protectors. The word knight entered translation matrices for the first time, carrying with it concepts that had been lost for millennia. Marcus Reed returned to Earth, not as a conqueror, but as a teacher. The Galactic Coalition established the first Academy of Honor, where beings from across the stars came to learn about courage, mercy, justice, and truth. Admiral Zex-9 became one of its first students, trading his worship for a scholar's robes. But perhaps the most profound change was the simplest. Across the galaxy, in 1,000 different languages, children began to hear stories of knights again. Not as ancient myths, but as living examples of what any being could become when they chose honor over expedience, mercy over cruelty, and hope over despair. The galaxy had forgotten what a knight was, but now they knew. And in knowing, they began to remember what they themselves could be. Dr. Yulara, now the Academy's first xenological historian, wrote in her final report, "The human concept of knight represents more than a warrior class or moral code. It represents the potential that lies dormant in every civilized being. The potential to be more than we are, to stand for something greater than ourselves, and to light the way for others in their darkest hour." In the end, Marcus Reed had done something no army could accomplish. He had given the galaxy back its soul. And in the depths of space, where the Wanderer continued its mission of exploration and discovery, a simple inscription remained on the captain's wall. Courage, honor, justice, mercy, honesty, hope. Words that once again meant something to the stars. The Age of Knights had returned to the galaxy, and it had arrived not through conquest or force, but through the simple act of one person choosing to do what was right, no matter the cost. Epilogue. The Eternal Watch. Years later, on a dozen different worlds, monuments stood to honor the day the galaxy remembered what it meant to be noble. But Marcus Reed's greatest monument was not carved in stone or cast in metal. It lived in the hearts of those who chose to follow his example, who took up the ancient oath to protect those who could not protect themselves. The knights had returned to the stars, and the darkness would never again go unchallenged. In the darkest night, when hope seems lost, remember this: somewhere among the stars, a knight keeps watch, and in their vigil we find the courage to become knights ourselves. Final entry: Personal Log of Captain Marcus Reed, First Knight of the Galactic Age.